For the mini ornament, you're going to need a small, smooth styrofoam ball. The kit comes with one that already has this equator line there for you. You'll also need 8 pieces of your fabric for the first layer, and then you'll need 16 pieces for the second layer. I'm mixing it up on this ornament with 2 different patterns, but 16 pieces for the second layer. Some ribbon for your bow, a strip of fabric for the band that goes around the circumference of your ornament, some applique pins, they're about 3/4 inch long, a decorative pin to hold your bow in place, a thimble, a pen, thin Sharpie or pencil to mark your ball, a ruler, some good fabric scissors, and a soft measuring tape. To prep your mini ball, you're going to need the smooth ball, a pen or thin Sharpie, about 15 inches of a narrow ribbon, a few pins, and your soft measuring tape. The ball that comes with your kit has this nice equator line on there already. It's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to mark that line with a pen so we can see it better. Next, what you want to do is take one of those pins and place it near the end of the ribbon and put that pin in your ball anywhere you want on that equator line that you just drew. And we're going to wrap the ribbon around the ball on that line and then twist the ribbon around that pin just like you would if you were wrapping ribbon on a present, and make that ribbon go around the ball that way. So you have 2 ribbons crossing in the center. You just want to make sure they're nice and straight and it looks like all the sections are pretty even. And then you're going to pin it in place at the top. Next, what you need to do is take your pen, just make some little marks on the sides of each of those ribbons where they cross on both poles of the ball. Do it on that side, and then we're going to do it on the other side, the same thing. Now when you remove the pins and the ribbons, you have some guides that you put on there where we can make a nice line down the center of the ball. We're going to use the soft measuring tape and pin it in the middle of those markings and run it around the circumference of the ball. And we'll have a nice edge from that measuring tape where we can draw another equator line. And we're going to do the same thing with the measuring tape on the other half of the ball, so we can continue the line all the way around the circumference. Now you have 2 lines crossing on both sides of the ball in the center that we can use to guide where we place our fabric. For the first layer, you're going to take 4 rectangles of fabric. Take one of those rectangles, hold it horizontally, fold down the top edge about 1/4 inch, and then fold that piece in half like you would a book and press it to make a crease in the center. This is where you're going to put your applique pin, about 1/8 of an inch from the top edge of that rectangle. You're going to place that pin and then poke it right into the center where those equator lines cross on your ball. Make sure everything's straight so that crease should line up with your line. Fold down the right top corner of your rectangle and then the top left corner of your rectangle. Overlap them a little bit at the bottom center, and that's where you're going to put your pin to hold that triangle in place. Now you're going to do the same thing on the other side, opposite that triangle. Same thing, hold your rectangle horizontally, fold down the top edge, then fold the whole thing in half like a book, make a crease, place your applique pin 1/8 of an inch from the top edge, and it's going to go straight into the center of that ball where the equator lines meet. Make sure your fabric is straight so that the crease in your fabric lines up with the line on your ball. Fold down the right corner, fold down the left corner, and pin those in place down at the bottom center. Now you want to do the same thing in the other two places that are left. You want to make sure that when you pin your rectangle in the center hole of your ball, that you're really putting it almost on top of the other tips of the triangles. We really don't want any space up there. And if you do happen to see the pin showing through, it probably means that you put your pin a little bit too close to the top edge. We really want to have 1/8 of an inch up there so that the pin is covered in the center. Now we have 4 pieces for our first layer. We need to smooth down the adjacent corners of the triangles and pin those in place. You're probably going to be able to overlap them and just use one pin at the corner. It should be right in the middle of those equator lines. That's how you know that all of your triangles are straight. Now we have 4 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4. All of our creases and lines are lining up, so we know everything is straight, and your first layer is complete. For the second layer, you need 8 rectangles of fabric. For the first 4, I'm going to use this orange fabric. You fold it just like you did for the first layer. This time, when you pin it in the ball, we're going to use our soft measuring tape, line it up with the center hole, and place that rectangle fabric at the 3/8 mark. 3/8 of an inch from the center hole is where you want to put the pin for the point of your second layer triangle. Make sure it's straight and fold the corners and pin it down just like you did on your first layer. Your pins on this second layer triangle are going to go straight through your first layer into the ball. After you do your first triangle, you do the same thing on the opposite side. Again, put the point of that triangle, the pin, 3/8 of an inch from the center hole. Right on the crease from your first layer, straight through those fabrics into the ball. Make sure everything is straight and pin it down just like you did before. Now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, we're going to smooth down the adjacent corners of those triangles. They probably won't overlap very well at the bottom, so you probably need to use 2 separate pins for the corners of those triangles, and that's fine. They should still end up in the center between your equator lines. So smooth down and pin each of the corners of the adjacent triangles. Now we need to add 4 more pieces for our second layer. We're going to fold and pin them exactly like you did for the first 4 pieces of your second layer. These pieces are going to go in between the orange ones, but you're still going to place that point pin 3/8 of an inch from the center hole. Just make sure everything is straight and seems to be in the middle of your fabric triangles, and when you pin it down, it should be in the middle of those equator lines. Now that we got those final 4 pieces pinned onto our ball, you do the same thing as before, smooth down the adjacent corners and pin them in place. Now we have 2 layers complete, 1, 2, and half of our ball. For the band around the circumference of the ball, you're going to take that long piece of fabric, hold it horizontally, and fold down the top edge and then the bottom edge up so that you get about a 3/4 inch band. You're going to figure out which part of the ball is the top for you, and then take a couple of satin pins and pin that band in place in line with the crease on your fabric triangles. Then you're going to wrap that band around the circumference of your ball so it covers up the pins from your second layer. Just snugly wrap it around. When you get back to the top, put a couple more pins to hold it in place. Then you're going to take your scissors and just snip off the excess fabric. Okay, now it's time for your bow. You're going to need your ruler and your ribbons for the bow. First, we're going to start with the most narrow ribbon. Take your decorative pin and place it about a 1/4 inch from the end of that ribbon. Then you're going to use your ruler to measure out about 2 inches from the pin. And you're going to place that pin at the 2-inch mark so that you can form a loop for your hanger. Now you just hold that loop in place and measure again from the pin on the ruler about 1 inch. Place that pin at the inch mark, hold the loop, and do it again on the other side. You're going to go back and forth making these 1-inch loops, kind of like a fan, on your pin until you have 6 to 8 loops, usually 6 for the mini ball. After you've completed your 6 loops, just trim off the excess ribbon. You can fan out those loops to make it look nice and pretty there. And then we're going to add our second ribbon. I'm going to use this orange ribbon. You're going to, again, put that pin about a 1/4 inch from the end of the ribbon and then measure out 1 1/4 inches this time. Just a little bit bigger for that bottom layer of the bow. Again, you're going to do alternating loops, 1 1/4 inch, kind of like a fan. When you get 6 to 8 loops, again, you're going to trim the excess ribbon. Spread out your loops on your pin, make it look nice and pretty. Now it's time to add that bow to your ball. You're going to find where the top is and line it up with the creases on the fabric triangles and pin it right in the center. At this point, I usually like to put a couple extra pins close to the center underneath those loops so they don't show through the bow ribbons, just to make sure that that bow is really secure in place so that when it's hung up or handled year after year, that there's no chance that bow is going to be pulled out of the ornament. So just hide a few under the loops so it's nice and secure. And then you have your finished mini ball. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.